Welcome, everyone. Thank you for attending the Street Transportation Department's virtual public meeting about 55th Avenue from Thomas Road to Camelback Road. We're excited to discuss the proposed travel lane, parking, and bike lane changes. If you'd like to listen to this meeting in Spanish, we do have a Spanish translation line. Elsie will be our translator tonight. Elsie, please introduce information in Spanish.
Of course, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Elsie, and I'll be serving as the Spanish interpreter for today's meeting. I will now take a moment to introduce myself to our Spanish-speaking audience and share some guidelines. Buenas tardes, bienvenidos a la reunión del día de hoy. Mi nombre es Elsie Duarte y estaré sirviéndoles como intérprete a nuestra audiencia de habla hispana. Deseamos antemano pedirles que al momento de hacer un comentario público, favor de hablar despacio, con claridad y evite tener distracciones de fondo. Y finalmente hago una breve pausa con cada una o dos oraciones para poder interpretar de la manera más completa posible. Como se dijo anteriormente, tenemos también las instrucciones para escuchar la reunión en español en el chat. Como pueden ver, llaman al 602-534-1000 y cuando se les solicite, ingrese el número de reunión 40392 seguido por el símbolo de número. Gracias. Thank you.
Thank you, Elsie. My name is Vivian Padilla, and I am a Public Information Officer with the City of Phoenix Street Transportation Department, and I am your host for tonight's virtual live meeting. On your screen, you will see a list of some of our project members. Please go ahead and introduce yourself as well as your relationship to this project, starting off with Keeney.
Good evening. I'm Keeney Knudsen. I'm the Director of the Street Transportation Department. Our department is responsible for the project we're talking about this evening.
My name is Brianna Velez, and I'm the Assistant Street Transportation Director, and I oversee the division responsible for our active transportation program.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Carl Langford. I'm a traffic engineering supervisor, and I help oversee the implementation of signing and striping, and so therefore related with bike lane projects.
Hi, I'm Marielle Brown. I'm the project manager for this project, and I will be presenting it tonight.
Perfect. On your screen now, you will see our agenda. We will begin with our goals and some guidance. We will then be hosting our first audience poll where we will need your participation, so keep your eyes on the screen. We'll then review the project area and history and share with you the proposed changes. Then we'll go into another audience poll where we'll need your participation again. And finally, we'll get more community perspective by answering questions live at the end of this meeting. We will be answering questions from the Spanish language line first, if there are any. Then those who asked to be called on during the registration process will be unmuted. Then those who submitted questions during the registration process will get their questions answered. And finally, those who send us questions via the Q&A box will get their questions answered. We will open the floor to anyone who is joining us at this meeting who would like to be unmuted and ask a question. So definitely keep your eyes out for that. The chat box is where you can submit your comments, and your comments will be shared with the project team and will play a role with the final decision. Now on your screen, you'll see an example of what your actual screen should look like. You can see yellow arrows pointing to red circles. Click in those areas on your own screen so that your chat box and your Q&A box open up. In a similar fashion, the poll will also pop up when we get to that stage. So take a moment to look at your screen and activate these sections for yourself. And now that we've covered some basics, let's go ahead and get started with Keeney.
Thank you, Vivian. And I wanted to welcome everybody to the meeting this evening. I wanted to thank you for your time that you're spending to hear a little bit more about this project. This project is an important one for us for a couple of reasons. One, we are always looking for opportunities to be able to make safer, more comfortable ways to be able to bicycle and use active transportation modes around the city. And this stretch along 55th Avenue that we're talking about this evening is a great 1 mile stretch that we're looking at improving our facilities in there and for bicycling. But also, we also have a bigger project that's going on our Grand Canal. We're looking at putting in a multi-use path along the Grand Canal. And this project that we're talking about this evening with 55th Avenue is the opportunity to be able to provide some better connectivity onto that canal once we've completed the construction improvements. You may ask, why do we need to have a meeting like this to be able to talk about bicycle lanes or adding bicycle lanes and making changes like this? Whenever we are going to be making changes to the number of travel lanes on a roadway, or make a change to the amount of on-street parking that is on a roadway, and whenever we're making changes like that, we need to have a public meeting. And that public meeting is an opportunity for us to share information about what's going on, but it's also an opportunity for you to provide input and feedback into our decision making on whether to move forward with this project or not. Now, I'm not going to get too much into the details of the project. I'm going to let my project team do that, and I'm going to turn that over to Marielle right now.
Thank you, Keeney, for that introduction, and thank you, Vivian, for running the meeting. I'm Marielle Brown. I'm the project manager, and I am excited to be here to talk about the project tonight. So we're talking about 55th Avenue and a proposal to add bike lanes along 55th Avenue from Thomas Road to Camelback Road. So before we get into the details of the proposal, we want to hear from you, the audience, and how do you relate to the proposal area? So if you are using a computer, you are able to answer the poll. It should pop up in your screen, so please let us know, how do you relate? A, I live near the project area. B, I use the street to commute to work or school, run errands, access business, recreational activities, or other. C, I work at or own a business in the project area. And then D, none of the above. And if you want, you can also put your answer in the chat if it's all of those or some of those or something specific you want to share with us. So we'll give you just a few more seconds to answer the question. And when everyone is completed, the answers will pop up on the screen and we'll be able to get a sense of how people at this meeting are related to the project area.
And Marielle, we have a couple of people who have just started to take the poll, so we'll leave it open a little bit longer. We want to make sure that we get everyone's participation with this poll question. So we'll close it off in a couple of seconds.
All right, thanks, Vivian. So if you are in the middle of taking the poll, please complete your answer and we'll be able to share it with everyone in just a few seconds. Right, and the poll has ended, and it looks like 4 people use the street to commute, and another 3 live near the project area. And then we also have some people that didn't answer. So thank you for participating. It sounds like we do have people who are really connected to the project area. So I'm excited to hear your thoughts on the proposal. The public engagement process is launching tonight. And on your screen, you see the public engagement timeline. So the public meeting is tonight, November 30th. This meeting is being recorded and it will be posted on our website in a few days so that you can share it or watch it again. The survey is also launching tonight. So during the meeting, the same website that you used to register for this meeting, we will post a survey to it. And that will be open from November 30th to December 28th. Once we've heard from the community and reviewed the options, we will share our decision in early 2023. And then if any changes are made to the street, those changes will be made during the pavement project that is anticipated for summer of 2023. This project is part of Phoenix's Complete Streets program. The City of Phoenix has a policy that requires us to design streets with walking, biking, transit, and driving in mind. So when we do repave streets, we look at the opportunity to update the striping to see if we can better suit what the community needs. The goal is to create a network of connected streets that are safe and enjoyable options for everyone. As Keeney mentioned, we have a lot going on 55th Avenue, specifically the northern mile of this corridor from Thomas to Camelback, or I'm sorry, from Indian School Road to Camelback. So this is a quick summary of the Cool Corridors program. The program is meant to provide more shade where people are walking, and 55th Avenue from Indian School Road to Camelback is one of the 9 project areas. It's part of a $1.5 million project to plant over 1,800 trees citywide. And the picture you see on your screen is a picture of the trees along 55th Avenue waiting to be planted. This is also a project that connects to, or this proposal along 55th Avenue connects to one of our exciting projects, Grand Canal Phase 3. This is a map of the Grand Canal Phase 3 project. It goes along the northern side of the Grand Canal from the 75th Avenue to 47th Avenue. So this is an opportunity to connect that future multi-use path that is anticipated to start construction in 2023. When we think about bike infrastructure and designing streets, we think about the different types of bicyclists that might be interested in using it. So on your screen, you see a graphic of the different kinds of bicyclists. On the far right is someone that is typically a more assertive bike rider, someone riding a very athletic bike, whereas on the left, there is a woman and a child on a ride-along bike. Typically, people riding with children or younger adults want to ride in more protected bike lanes that are a little bit lower stress. So when we have streets without bike lanes, it does work for some bicyclists. Typically, it works for the most assertive bike riders who are comfortable sharing the lane of traffic with the cars. When we look at adding bike lanes, oftentimes that means more people are comfortable using those bike lanes, so we're reaching a greater population. And then when we look at adding buffered bike lanes or separated bike lanes, oftentimes we see that almost anyone who's interested in riding a bike will feel comfortable in that type of bicycle infrastructure. So tonight, I'm going to walk through 3 different options for three different options for the proposal along the street. And they match these 3 different types of bicyclists. So the first option is option A, which you see on your screen right now, 55th Avenue from Thomas Road to Indian School Road. So this is the southern section of the proposal area. Right, option A is the option to have no changes. So we would repaint the street as it is after it's repaved. And right now, the street has parking on both sides of the street. There's on-street parking, and there's 1 lane of traffic in each direction. The cross sections on the screen show this, and then the cross section from Osborne Road to Indian School Road is a little bit more narrow than Thomas Road to Osborne Road. It's only a couple feet more narrow, but I did want to call that out. This cross section is option A from 55th Avenue from Indian School Road to Camelback Road. And again, this is the no changes option. So it shows what the street is right now. And that is 1 lane of car travel in each direction with on-street parking. This is the section that has the median, where there's recently been a sidewalk added and where trees are being added. So that's also shown in the cross section. Option B is the option to add bike lanes. So this section shows the southern section again, from Thomas Avenue to Indian School Road. The street is wide enough that we can stripe bike lanes on the street and keep the on-street parking and keep 1 lane of travel in each direction. So it won't be removing anything. It will just be adding in bike lanes the way and keeping the street as is otherwise. This cross section shows option B from Indian School Road to Camelback Road. So this is the section that has the median in it. And in this section, the area between the median and the curb is wide enough that we can add bike lanes and still keep parking on both sides of the street and the through travel lane. So what you're seeing is the the through travel lane, the cars are next to the median, and the bike lane is between the median and the parking lane. Just like you would see, or the bike lane is between the travel lane and the parking lane, just like you would see standard with bike lanes across the city. There's also an option B, left side bike lane. So because the median does not have driveways, it doesn't have a lot of interruptions in it, it could be a more comfortable place for people to bike because they won't have those conflicts of cars turning into driveways. So we also proposed an option that is similar. You have one lane of travel in each direction and you have parked cars, just like you do now. But the bike lane, there's an added bike lane and it's on the left side of the travel lane. So it's next to the median between the cars traveling and between the median and the cars traveling. And then finally, there's option C. And this is the option to add buffered bike lanes. So a bike lane buffer is extra painted space between the traffic lane where the cars are driving and the bike lane. So these cross sections show the southern portion again from Thomas Road to Indian School Road. In order to add the buffers, we would have to remove some of the on-street parking. So the proposal is that we would have on-street parking on the eastern side of 55th Avenue from Thomas Road to Osborne Road. So there would be on-street parking on one side of the street, on the eastern side of the street. And then there would be bike lanes with buffers and one lane of travel in each direction. From Osborne Road to Indian School Road, the parking would be on the western side of the street. So on the west side of the street, there would be on-street parking like there is now. On the east side of the street, there would be no on-street parking. There would still be one lane of travel in each direction, bike lanes, and buffers between the travel lanes and the bike lanes. I do want to note that this was based off of this proposal, east versus west on-street parking. It's based off of what staff thought made sense looking at current parking, looking at the current parking situation. If the community is interested in a different side of the street, but they are still interested in this option, we're very open to that feedback, and we certainly want to hear if you're interested in option C, but having a different parking configuration. And then this is option C from Indian School Road to Camelback Road. So this cross section shows the section with the median. And in this section, the area between the median and the curb is too narrow for us to add a buffer and keep on-street parking. So this proposal is showing no on-street parking, but having one driving lane in each direction and a bike lane on each direction. There's a buffer between the bike lane and the travel lane. This right side option would have the bike lanes right against the curb, right where there's currently a parking lane, and then there would be a buffer between the bike lanes and the travel lane. There's also option C, left side option. So this is the same layout in that there would be no on-street parking. There would be a buffered bike lane, but the bike lane would be to the left. It would be between the median and the traveling cars. There's a buffer, and because there are so few interruptions to the median, there are no driveways, there aren't a lot of cross streets, we would be able to add vertical protection with this option. So we could add green flexible delineators in the buffer between the bike lane and the traveling cars. This slide shows the parking impacts of the three options. So for option A, there would be no changes to on-street parking. Everything along 55th Avenue from Thomas Road to Camelback Road would stay the same in terms of parking. For option B, that is the same thing. there would be no changes to on-street parking. We would be able to keep all of the existing on-street parking for option B. And then finally, for option C, there would be an impact to on-street parking. So from Thomas Road to Osborne Road, the parking on the western side of the street would be removed. The parking on the eastern side of the street would stay. From Osborne Road to Indian School Road, the parking on the west side of the street would stay, and the parking on the eastern side of the street would be removed. And then from Indian School Road to Camelback Road, all of the on-street parking would be removed. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to my colleague, Carl Langford, to talk about the traffic impacts.
Thank you, Marielle. So one of the questions we always get when we do these type of projects is people say, well, what's going to happen to the traffic? Am I going to get more congestion? Is it going to be lighter? What's going to happen? So one of the things we do is we look at what are the impacts to traffic. So in this one here, the road currently is basically a one-lane each direction roadway. So the lane configurations are going to stay the same. The lane configurations of the signals would stay the same. Some of the lanes may narrow up depending on the option, and that narrowing up may create a little bit more a feel that you might be constrained, and it helps people drive a little slower, closer to the speed limit more often. But as far as any kind of impacts to the traffic and congestion or anything, we don't anticipate any because the lanes are all staying kind of the same. Next slide, please. So one thing to note, the traffic signal at Indian School Road and 55th Avenue, that will get rebuilt. Kind of in association with this project, but it wouldn't necessarily be exactly at the same time. We're currently in contracts with some people to get the design going. And really the reason the signal is going to get rebuilt is somewhat the median project, the added sidewalks and the shading. We're going to have more pedestrians accessing that median, and the traffic signal, how it's set up today, can't really access that median and use the signal and use the crosswalks in that location. And so for that reason, the signal will get rebuilt. Some of the signal operations, depending on if option C is picked and it's, say, a left side or a right side, or actually option B also has left and right, may change the operation of the signal a little bit, kind of minorly. And again, there's options depending on what exactly happens, but want to let you guys be aware of that information. So next slide. So now in kind of summary and review, this here is 55th Avenue, just the section from Thomas to Indian School. Again, we have 3 different options, and we want to hear from the public. That's why we're doing this meetings, is to kind of get you guys to be aware. There's a survey on the website as well. So again, in review, option A is basically no changes. Everything basically stays exactly as is. There's no bike lanes. There's no change into the on-street parking. Option B is adding bike lanes, but the on-street parking stays the same. Option C is a buffered bike lane, and with the buffered bike lane, half of the street reduces the parking. So there'd be no parking on one side of the street. Buffered bike lanes, again, minimal impacts to any traffic aspects. So next slide. Now a poll should be popping up on your screen, and really, the question is, which option works best for your community? And again, this is specifically the section of 55th Thomas to Indian School specifically. That option A, basically keep the current design of 55th, so the striping and changes won't change at all. Or option B, so that poll is up. If you guys can go ahead and start selecting that, it will be open for a bit. Again, option A is no changes. Option B is where we'd have the bike lanes, but the parking does stay in the place. And then option C is basically updating this just for the section of 55th Thomas to Indian School in that area. So we'll give it just a couple, half a minute or so that people can submit online, pop up that poll. Again, if you don't see the poll, down in the bottom right corner of your screen is an option to open up that poll so that it pops up on your screen and you can see it.
Alrighty, and we are going to leave this open a little bit longer. I do see that more people have joined the meeting, so we want to make sure that you can participate in the poll. I see that a couple of people are still taking it, so go ahead and continue filling that poll question out. We will be closing it shortly so that we can move forward.
And again, this isn't the only time that we're going to be asking or that you can provide information. There's also going to be a survey at the website that we encourage you to talk to your neighbors and other people in the area as well to make sure that we're getting as much information as we can from everyone. So, okay, it looks like that poll has finished, and at the moment it looks as though option B and C are actually tied with 3 votes each on that. So thank you for answering the poll. So now looking specifically at 55th Avenue, Indian School to Camelback, so the section of the road that has the median. A poll should be opening up again shortly. Well, just review first, sorry. Option A is basically no changes. So the parking and the bike lanes, no changes to it. Option B is adding a bike lane, but keeping all the parking. And then minimal traffic. Again, there is a left side and a vertical, or left side and a right side that's going to be in option B. And option C is adding buffered bike lanes, where we take away the parking, provide kind of extra space between the biking and the driving traffic. So next slide on that, and you should be seeing a poll pop up. So again, if you don't see the poll down in the right corner is how you can access that. The poll is thinking about your priorities for 55th Avenue from Thomas Road to Camelback Road. Which option do you think would best suit your community? And again, option A is keep the current design of 55th Avenue with 1 driving lane in each direction and on-street parking on both sides of the street. Option B is the right side, or B is option B, right side specifically. So right side bike lanes. Update 55th Avenue with 1 driving lane in each direction, bike lanes on the right side of the road, and on-street parking on both sides of the street. And then option, or C in the poll here, is option B, but with left side bike lanes. So it updates 55th Avenue with 1 driving lane in each direction, bike lanes on the left side, and on-street parking on both sides of the street. And then you have D in the poll, which is actually option C, right side bike lanes. And again, option C is the buffered bike lanes. So this would be 55th with 1 driving lane, but a buffered bike lane, no on-street parking. And D in the poll is the right side. E in the poll is the left side of option C. So it's 55th Avenue with 1 driving lane, but the bike lane would be on the left side of the road against the median in that case. So we'll give it just a little bit more for the survey to be able to finish up. So any of you working on that, please submit those.
And I see several people who are still taking this poll question, so we'll definitely leave it up open a little bit longer before we totally close it off.
Yeah, and again, this is just kind of gauging the people that are here attending this virtual meeting at the moment, kind of what their thought is. We encourage everybody to go to the survey as well, and especially there's only so many people that are on the meeting at the moment. We encourage everyone to talk to your neighbors, talk to the people that you live around, whatnot, people specifically that use 55th Avenue.
Alrighty, and we're waiting on one individual to finish taking this poll question, so we'll keep waiting.
And we do have the poll finished up here. So as far as the poll goes, at least here in this meeting, it seems we did have answer E, which is option C, the left side buffered bike lanes, so removing the parking. That has 5 votes. We also have 2 votes for option B, again, the left side bike lane with that, and we see 1 vote for option A, which is no changes to it. So thank you all for participating in this poll for the virtual meeting today. And we'll turn it over to Vivian.
All righty. So we are towards the end of this meeting. Obviously, thank you for attending. The survey is now open. You can find it on our project website, which is Phoenix.gov/streets/55 Avenue TC. We hope to reach a decision in early next year, and pavement is scheduled to begin in summer of next year. And just as a friendly reminder, if you'd like to submit a question for the team to answer, go ahead and type it in the Q&A box. Submit your comments in the chat box. We will be sharing your comments with the project team. On your screen, you will see the order in which questions will be answered. We'll go ahead and tackle the Spanish language line questions first. Elsie, are there any questions?
No, not at this time.
Okay, perfect. I'm not quite sure if our WebEx was working perfectly well. The city had just gone through an update of WebEx. So I don't have any pre-registered speakers or questions. I'm not quite sure if that maybe affected it. What I do ask, though, is if you do want to ask a question, go ahead and raise your hand or type it in the Q&A box at this moment. We can answer your questions if they're in the Q&A box, or if you'd like to be unmuted and speak it, I can go ahead and give you a couple of minutes to ask that question. We do have the luxury that there are not too many participants in this meeting that everybody could ask a question. So I'll go ahead and take a look. I do see that, Jessica, you've raised your hand, so I will go ahead and unmute you. Go ahead and ask your question.
Oh, sorry, I had gotten out of the poll and I wanted to know how to get back in, but that was back then. I'm fine.
Alrighty, so no question then?
No.
Okay, perfect. I'm actually going to try to unmute. I think, Marcia, you are joining us via phone call. Marcia and I had communicated prior to this meeting. I'm going to unmute you to see if you have any questions. Do you have any questions, Marcia? Not quite sure if this is working, but we did get a question submitted through the chat box. So someone was wondering where they can get information about traffic calming devices and that could go up in your neighborhoods. Cynthia, I'm sending you that website link, and you can actually see it on your screen now. We tend to get very similar questions throughout all of our meetings. The first being about homelessness in your community. That's going to be the Phoenix.gov/PHX Cares. That's where you can go for homelessness issues, or you can also call 602-262-6251. That second link is our traffic calming information. That's Phoenix.gov/streets/traffic calming. There is information on that page, including a downloadable flyer in English and in Spanish if you are interested in speed humps or speed cushions. You can also call the Phoenix Police Speed Enforcement line. That's 602-534-SPEED. And then if you are looking for information on our pavement projects, that's that fourth link. Information on the city's cool pavement program is that fifth link. And then information on our roadway safety action plan is Phoenix.gov/streets/road safety, and our active transportation plan information. We're actually having a live virtual public meeting just like this one next Monday. So December 5th at 6 p.m. Head over to Phoenix.gov/streets/ATP if you'd like to register for that. Moving back to the Q&A, I see Christine, you have your hand raised. I'm unmuting you. Go ahead and ask your question.
Yes, I wanted to find out. So, you know where the school is between Osborne and Clarendon on 55th? It's already pretty congested right there when school's in and out of, people picking up their kids. I'm wondering how would that affect the bike lane situation?
I can answer that question. So we have kind of met with the school, and we have observed there is a fair amount of congestion, specifically during pickup and drop off. A lot of that has to do with kind of the single lane that is in that space in the area. So ideally, as this keeps the single lane, whether or not the bike lane goes in or it doesn't, it really shouldn't make any changes overall compared to what's happening there today, basically. We may potentially, depending on the situation, remove the parking, but again, it will be removed for the bike lane capacity and usage. And so ideally, you shouldn't drastically see any different change one way or the other in that location.
Okay, thank you.
All righty. And I don't see any more raised hands, but I do see a couple of questions in the Q&A box. So Monica is asking, what about speed bumps along 55th Ave? I know this is a very big stretch of road, Monica. Was there a particular area you were looking at? But for the group, she is wondering, what about speed bumps along 55th Ave?
So I can answer that question. So our speed hump program, and actually it's speed humps and speed cushions we do in the city, is available for 55th Avenue. 55th is considered a collector, so it would be a speed cushion. They're the ones that have little gaps in them. They're specifically set so fire trucks can pass through faster. How the process works is typically, if you go to the website, there's a place where we get 10 signatures to kind of request for it. And then from there, it's really a petition based. So it's a neighborhood driven, it's petition for those that are impacted potentially by the speed humps.
¿Quieren agregar?
Alrighty, thank you for that, Carl. Tim is wondering, and this is a very interesting question, I was not aware of this happening in this neighborhood. Will the new shade areas between Indian School and Camelback be maintained more than in the past? The new trees are nice, but people are already trying to steal them and drive off-road vehicles in the grass. That's definitely a first that I've seen at a public meeting. Does anybody have an answer for that?
Keeney, I'll answer that one. As far as the new trees that are in that stretch between Indian School and Camelback, those will be maintained by the Street Transportation Department. We also work with the Parks and Recreation Department for the maintenance of that median. I'll share that concern. I didn't realize that people were looking at driving in there or potentially taking the trees in there, but we'll have folks, my staff, investigate that, working with Parks and Recreation. But if there's any other details you want to send to us about that, let us know.
Alrighty, thank you, Keeney. I don't see any more questions popping up in the Q&A, and I also don't see any more raised hands in our log. So just friendly reminder, if you do want to ask a question, now is the time. If you want to send a question through the Q&A box, you can also do that. Marielle, could we maybe put up the slide that has the informational links, just to give people a friendly reminder of all of those links that you can jot down, make a mental note of. Everything is accessible on our web page, which is Phoenix.gov/streets. Seeing no more questions or other raised hands, I'm going to try one more individual who has a raised hand just to double check. Did you have a question you'd like to ask, Jessica?
No.
Okay.
I guess I stayed up. I don't know how to lower that. Or okay, I see it. Sorry.
Oh, you're good. All righty. I did see Christine, you just had a raised hand. Did you have a question?
Yes. When the project starts, how long would it take for it to be completed on average?
We do have Ryan, Ryan Stevens, who oversees our pavement program here tonight, and I think he would be able to answer that question about how long the pavement project will take.
Okay.
Thank you, Marielle. Yeah, when we come to do the mill and overlay project from Indian School to Camelback Road, the contractor will be there a few days prior, doing some prep work leading up to the paving. The actual paving of the street will take anywhere from 2 to 3 days, most likely. And then we have some final work, raising utilities and getting the striping in place. So the street will be open, but the striping may not fully be back in. That might take a few weeks. We'll work with our Traffic Services Division to make sure that that is as seamless as possible. So the whole process might take a few weeks, but paving only takes a few days. And again, the paving is not planned to occur until summer of 2023.
Okay, thank you.
Alrighty, and I see Monica, you have raised your hand. Go ahead and ask your question. You're unmuted.
Oh yeah, I was just wondering if they were to put the bike lanes and the no parking, will there be signs that say no parking along 55th through Indian School to Camelback?
I can answer that question. So yes, there would be no parking signs that go in conjunction with the project if the parking is removed. So yes.
Okay, thank you.
Alrighty, and I don't see any new questions or any more, or actually, Tim, you just raised your hand. You are unmuted. Go ahead and ask your question.
I just had a quick question. I just wanted to comment. My wife and I absolutely love the shaded area. We use it every single day to walk our dogs, and whoever okayed that, they need a raise. My question is, on 55th between Camelback and Indian School, there's no street marking. Everybody seems to think it's a two-lane road north and south. If they don't put parking in or they don't put bike lanes in, are they going to mark that so that people know they're not supposed to be driving on the far right side?
Thank you for that concern and observation. As far as that's the first time we've heard that component to it, so that's something we could definitely do if, say, option A is selected. The other options all do put in bike lanes specifically and would presumably help to identify that more as a specific lane.
Because when we're walking, you can see two sets of vehicles, or when I'm driving, there's always somebody trying to pass on the right side, and because there's no street, there's no marking, they're going up on the sidewalk. So somebody might want to actually go observe it, because down by John F. Long, these little kids are walking and people don't pay attention. They need some kind of marking, even if it's only one lane.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you for the comment. Yeah, thank you for the comment, and we'll take a look at that. I'd also say you can thank your councilwoman. She was very much instrumental in selecting this stretch of 50th Avenue to do the tree planting. So the additional shade in there and the trees in there are in our partnership working with her. She selected that one, and I know it's going to be a great amenity for the community there to be able to have those as those trees grow and provide more shade along that stretch.
Alrighty, I don't see any more questions or any new raised hands, so we can go ahead and walk you through the end. Go ahead and visit our project webpage. That's Phoenix.gov/streets/55 Avenue TC. We do have the survey open. You can take it in English, you can take it in Spanish, you can share it with your neighbors in the area. It will close December 28th, so you do have plenty of time to take it. If you have any questions, you can always contact us at Phoenix.gov. And with that, we thank you for joining us and have a good evening.